Hey Dan, sorry I couldn't be there today. I wanted to say a few words. You've meant a lot to me over the years, and I'll just be brief. But for everybody that doesn't know, this is a true story. When I first arrived at TTI, there was no computer or desk ready for me. So they sent me out to collect data for a week. So the first week I was there, I was actually out in the field collecting data. And I got hooked up with Dan, and that actually worked out to be one of the best things at TTI. I got introduced to fire ants in a big way, but more importantly, I met the most fun-loving, big-hearted, cool cat that has ever walked the halls of TTI. That was in 1995, and we've had so much fun over the years. TTI is full of family members that I know would be willing to give the shirts off their back if you needed it. But I've always felt like Dan would be the first person in line to give up his shirt, and that means a lot to me. So I'm going to share with you some photos of my experiences with Dan and proof that Dan's a hard worker, but he's also fun-loving. So during that first week, when we were collecting data, we found ourselves down near the valley, and Dan felt like he had introduced this Yankee to Mexico. So we did go across the border to have some fun and cool our heels in Mexico. And here is actually a photo from that first week of work in 1995. We're down in Mexico hanging out, Dan showing me the ropes. So it was a lot of fun. The next time we went out, we also found ourselves down near the southern part of Texas, and Dan decided he needed to show me what South Padre was all about. So we took the only vehicle we had, which was our TTI vehicle, out on the beach of South Padre to check things out. So here's a photo of us hanging out on the beach of South Padre with the TTI car, things that you probably couldn't get away with today. We were able to do so 25 years or so ago. Okay, so while we've had our share of fun, as you can see, Dan has also put a lot of sweat equity into TTI's success. And here's a few photos to demonstrate some of the things that Dan has done to help. So in these photos, Dan and I and some other folks installed 50 sign supports along the runways at Rellis. We dug the holes, we set the sign posts, we concreted them in. This was a lot of hard work, but it led to the requirements for minimum retroreflectivity that are in the MUTCD today. In working, this is one of my favorite projects where we were collecting data to understand how machine vision systems work in wet conditions. Dan's here filling the truck with water so we could go out and wet the pavement before we could collect our data. So like that past example, many of TTI's accomplishments start with ingenuity and also need to have good data collection. And so a lot of researchers generally start off thinking, well, ingenuity is all about the research design. But we know it doesn't end there. Something always goes wrong, even with the best research design. And that's where Dan MacGyver Walker comes in. We were always fortunate to have Dan on our data collection team because when something went wrong, Dan always had the ingenuity to improvise and find ways to maintain data collection at a high quality that you need to produce high quality research results. So here's a few photos that I want to demonstrate Dan's ingenuity. So here's Dan doing some kind of construction project somewhere around A&M. Here's Dan, the chicken rancher. Many of you might not know this, but Dan also is an expert totem pole carver. And here's proof of Dan's fine work. And you may not know this, but Dan used to be a computer scientist as well. And here's an example of Dan in his early days. Dan, thanks for being such a great colleague. I'm fortunate to have worked with you over the years. You treat everyone the same way, and you always find a way to make even the hardest work fun. I appreciate that. Best of luck to you and your family. I know we'll stay in touch. Take care.